Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. A couple things before I introduce our guest speaker. As a reminder, please turn off VPN. It will improve the quality of the video stream. And then if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, we do have a Q&A section. Please be sure to use that Q&A panel because we have disabled the chat feature. If you want to optimize your viewing experience, if you hover over the viewable window, you can switch to side-by-side mode. That should be the best way to view. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that this meeting is being recorded, so take that into consideration. We will be sharing this out with anybody that is not able to attend, but there will be no classified information being discussed here. So welcome everyone to the LLESA Speaker Series event with Terrell Lloyd. My name is Colin Yamaoka and I am the LLESA Program Coordinator. I'm extremely excited to have our guest speaker here today. Terrell is the 49ers full-time lead team photographer and the Senior Manager of Photography Services. He's also a part of the Canon Explorers of Light program. And for those of you that don't know, this is a group of top professional photographers from around the world selected to provide educational programs all over the country. Canon Explorers are a very select, prestigious group who share their photographic and technical experience to a wide number of photographers in a variety of personal appearances, seminars, and gallery shows, and we're, of course, here today, so we're happy to have him. Funny enough, I actually met Terrell years ago before his career with the 49ers. Terrell and I met through my dad, who worked with Terrell at a tech company in Silicon Valley, and funny enough, we also even bowled together. I would always refer to him as Terrell Bowl, since he was such a great bowler. And I was getting into the groove as a youth bowler at the time as well. You'll hear a lot more about his time as a bowler and working in the tech industry in his talk. I'm also happy to introduce our host of the talk, Eric McKinsey. Eric is the Acting Principal Associate Director for OMB and a longtime 49ers fan. The format for this call will start with a quick video and some insights from Terrell on his background, and then jump into a discussion between Eric and Terrell. This talk is being recorded, as I mentioned before. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A panel. Lastly, Terrell has graciously given us several Joe Staley bobbleheads that will be given away to a few lucky people that will be selected after the end of the call. Winners will be announced in a follow-up email. So I will pass things over to Terrell to share a bit about his background.
All right. How's everybody doing? Thanks for having me. First of all, wanted to start by, sharing a little story of my history. KPIX did a little cover story on me this year, actually last year at the beginning of the season. So I want to share this quick video and give you a little insight of my history and story on how I got with the 49ers and my past. So I'll pass to Colin to start the video.
For many players tonight, their dream of getting an NFL job will end. As one 49er employee has proven time and time again, the end of one road is really the beginning of another. If you've been to a 49er game, perhaps you've seen Terrell Lloyd. He's the one running from end zone to end zone, kneeling, focusing, shooting. But if Terrell could zoom in on his own life, the pictures would tell quite a story. His first passion was bowling. A native San Franciscan, Terrell knocking down splits at age 13.
By the time I was 17 years old, I was averaging over 200 and one of the top bowlers in San Francisco growing up.
And soon, one of the top bowlers in the country, good enough to join the Pro Bowlers Tour. And he had a dream.
Now the final match, the Pro Bowlers Tour.
No black bowler ever went on a national tour. There was one from Detroit that made it on TV, and he didn't win, and that was my goal that I wanted to be in.
Terrell played alongside the best bowlers in history, including the legendary Earl Anthony.
We were bowling the tournament, PBA tournament up in Portland, and Earl was on my pair, right? The king of bowling. And I was already nervous at 20 years old out on tour, and now I'm bowling on the same pair, as Earl Anthony. But it was one of the best feelings in the world, that I got to really, pursue that dream and become a professional bowler.
But like a football player, a bowler needs his health to throw strikes, and Terrell would never win a tournament.
I got sick at 19 years old, and my lung collapsed, and it was like one of those things where, they had to do surgery on my right arm, and I couldn't move my arm the same way. And after I got my health back, I said, you know, I'm going to try this, go out on tour. And for 2.5 years, I made a little money, shot some perfect games, but I would get tired a lot. And then after that, I knew, you know, that I couldn't be the same as I was before.
With his dream shattered, Terrell toiled with bartending at a bowling alley. That was until a telecommunications company called.
And they took a chance on me and hired me. I ended up working for this company for 20 years in their data center.
20 years in IT, a Silicon Valley career for most, but not Terrell. Somewhere deep inside was yet another untapped dream.
When I was a kid growing in San Francisco, I used to have a paper route and going to 49er games at Kezar. And I used to cut out pictures from the newspapers, and I would staple paper together and I would make my own 49er books.
While working IT, Terrell embarked on his next venture, working in photography.
Dana McLemore, when he was with the team and he left the team, me and my son used to go into his little hamburger place in San Mateo. And Dana says, hey, you ought to go out and shoot on the field. And I ended up getting a credential. And so they gave me a credential, and then I was like hooked. I was season ticket holder sitting in the stands. And, the PR director at the time says, hey, give me a call next time and see what I can do. And I did that every week. And that didn't pan out so well, and they hung up the phone on me.
The 49ers eventually focused on Terrell, and he landed his third dream job.
Tell me about some of your favorite shots, the ones you were most proud of.
It was a picture that I took before I was with the team from the stands with my camera in hand. And it was a picture of Joe Montana. And I had a feeling it was going to be his last game. And he came in, he threw a touchdown pass to Brent Jones, right? And, he gave a signature point and so on and so forth. And that's one of the images that just stand out to me because I'm a big Joe Montana, Jerry Rice fan coming up and so on and so forth.
I get tired of watching that guy run up and down the sidelines every game.
All righty, so we're back. Hopefully everybody can hear me. And they were able to see and hear the video. But just to give you a little history on my career, I was a PBA bowler for about 17 years. I worked for a company in Silicon Valley called Nortel Networks for over 20 years. And I've been with the San Francisco 49ers for, 24, on my 25th year as we go. And now don't try to add all those numbers because I'm not 80 years old or anything like that, but everything kind of like overlapped as well. And then I'm also the athletic photographer for the University of San Jose State. So yeah, so that's a little bit of my history, career, my path from where I've gone from, professional bowling to professional, to, a corporate career to professional photographer. And then, next slide. Hopefully on this next video, I want to show you a little bit about, when I went into the photography business and left the corporate world, my whole goal was to really, have a diverse portfolio. I wanted to learn a lot of different things in photography, if there's weddings, the portraits to, product photography. And the next video has some music to it as well, and maybe a little loud, but hopefully you can hear the music, but you'll be able to see the photos, and we'll run that video to show you a lot of things that I've done in my career up until this point. every time I watch that video, you know, it never gets old. So, you know, the one thing, as you can see in the video, I shot a lot of different things, from weddings to portraits to corporate to youth sports to commercial. I just wanted to learn it all and be able to be really more robust in what I do. And so, you know, hopefully that gives you a representation of some of the things that I've done in the past. Okay, we can go to the next slide there. The one thing, what I wanted to do when I was working in corporate for a long time, and when I started transitioning into, you know, photography, and I told myself, you know, the transition from corporate to full time, and what do I want to be? What was my goal setting? You know, what did I want to make every year? I mean, it's like, so I set that out to maintain a certain dollar amount for the year that I want to make once I decided to go full time. And then, you know, you always, people talk about writing goals, put them on the board and this and that. And I wanted to be able to still work 3-4 days out of the week, you know, and I achieved that for a long period of time. You know, it's like, as you look at the slide here, you know, from year to year, I mean, I worked about 180 something plus days per year, averaging about 3.5 days per week. So I was able to, you know, maintain that for, you know, I want to say 10, 12, 15 years until I transitioned into the 49ers full time. So that was, you know, I was able to achieve that goal, leaving the corporate side. We'll go to the next slide. And so if you look at here, and this is what I break out into, like, you know, when I work on the corporate side, you know, you have these revenue streams or these pie charts. I did them in circles. And this is where the percentage of income that came from the different levels of photography that I did, just to give you a little representation of that. So if one thing fell off, it's like, say, for example, if my product photography, you know, I didn't have as many clients that year, you know, I'm still getting money from weddings and corporate events or pro events or college. So I was able to maintain. I wasn't just doing weddings and portraits, and if they tapered off, it's like, uh-oh, what am I going to do? So that's why I wanted to do multiple different things as well. We go there. And one thing that I took advantage of really was technology that got me in with the 49ers. And if you look at today, you know, back then in '96, I bought a digital camera that cost me $12,000. It was 2 megapixels. It was like, you know, the IS rates were low. I mean, it was 3.5 frames a second. And where you see, for some technical people, that if they're photographers that are on the call, you know, it was a 12 image buffer. After 12 images, the buffer ran out. This was a hard drive that went into the camera. I mean, our phones now would take a better picture than this camera here, but this camera really got me in the door with the 49ers. And then the next slide will show, you know, where's technology at where I'm at today. You know, we're looking at 20 megapixels, 45 megapixels, shooting at anywhere from 16 frames a second to 20 frames per second in electronic mode. And these are the cameras that I'm actually using today. So the transition, because I've had every digital camera that Canon has come out with on their flagship line as well. And on the next slide, we'll have, I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes. A lot of people don't get to see behind the scenes what we get to do. This is what we did this year on Media Day, a little slideshow, 2-minute video to show some of the stuff that we did with the players before we started training camp.
Hi.
Well, hello there.
Yeah. How's it going?
That's the squad. What's up, y'all?
Oh, hey there.
Oh, hey there. Yeah, you like that? I see, yeah. Yeah.
They're gonna pop up like little word bubbles.
Okay, so I'm just
It's like 1, 2, 3.
Three, two, one, go ahead.
Let's go!
And so to end, so before we head into our Q&A, I'm a big quote guy. I always love quotes. I mean, this is the way I ran my business, and I tell photographers that I teach and speak and so on and so forth, is I say, your success in any business will always be in direct proportion to your ability to consistently exceed the expectations of your client or customers. And that's the way I ran my business, and I always try to exceed, everything that I did when I was doing corporate events and so on and so forth, and that's, landed me where I'm at today. So yeah, that's a little insight on my career. Hopefully that sums it up a little bit, and we can get into the Q&A.
Great, thanks, Terrell.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've had a very untraditional career path to become the team photography and senior manager of photography for the 49ers. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey to your current role?
Well, it's funny, when I got on the field and I started taking pictures, in a short amount of time, it was like I had a dream that says, man, it'd be great to get with the 49ers, right? I'm working my corporate job, and I was season ticket holder sitting in the stands, and there was one guy that was doing the entertainment on the field. They were doing the Frisbee dogs, the halftime show, check presentations, things like that. And he came up to me, and I'd only been out there for a short period of time. And he came to me and says, hey, I'm getting, my knee's getting kind of bad. How would you like to do what I'm doing? Come down to my office. And so he explained to me everything that he was doing. And I said, Doug, why me out of all the people that comes here? And he said, when you come in here with a smile on your face, you say hello to people, you're pleasant. He said, I figured you'd be good for the job. Now, this gentleman hadn't seen one picture I take it, but it was my personality and what I brought in when I came, and that's what really kind of like, started off my career indirectly with the 49ers. But then having a love for photography when I was going to school, even though I was a bowler, I was going to school, I was, took photography classes. And then when I worked in my corporate job, I did a couple of weddings on the side and then started doing some corporate events. And that's kind of shaped me to my path here today.
Great. Hey, so what does your day look like on game day?
Oh, game day. I mean, it's like, it's funny. People think it's a glamorous job, but it's many hours. I could be in here from 7 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. at night, even though the game is at 1 o'clock, right? I have a crew of photographers that work with me now, here at Levi's. It's when you look at it from what I have to do, it's not just shooting game action and game day, right? We have, I'm shooting for what we call our marketing department, our partnerships, our premium sales, our foundation, community relations. We have our ownership has special guests that come in. We're doing prints on site here at the stadium. We're basically, providing assets for, a lot of the sponsors and partnerships that the 49ers have, that's on the building, that's in the building. So it's like you got to have a crew of photographers that do that as well. I mean, and then other than, shooting pregame, players coming out, shooting arrivals, shooting pregame once they get dressed, and then getting into the game, right? Game action and so on and so forth, and then post-game. So people say, how many images do you guys have after a game? I have anywhere from, how many photographers and assistants with me? I think I have 10 or 12 people with me. I got about 7 shooters as well. And we could have anywhere from 25,000 to 30,000 images after a game that we have to process and go through. And this is each week, week in and week out. Road game's a little bit different because I don't have to do as much on the road compared as home. But it's like, it's basically where, I got to get huddle shots of the players, 4 partners, but everything has to look different every week. So it's a busy day.
That sounds like a long day.
Yes.
So how do you keep yourself from getting caught up in the game? I mean, the rest of us are. How do there's just so much excitement. How do you keep yourself from keeping focused?
Well, myself, I had to learn that early on. And when I first got on the field in Candlestick, it was like I found myself watching the game through the lens and not taking a photo, right? And then said, oh, shoot, I need to get that picture, and I would miss it. So I had to learn how to, channel that emotion and capture everything that goes on, and I'm playing the game as the game goes on. So I look at the game differently through the lens than, say, you would as a fan or watching it on TV or watching it in the stadium. And people say, well, how do you enjoy this? Like, well, because I remember everything that goes on, and I remember every picture that I've taken. And so I'll know if I got the shot or missed the shot. And so I had to learn that trait over the years. So now, do I get a little upset at times? Oh yeah, when we're losing, I'm not a good loser. But it's like, yeah, but you just have to, you got to stay with it, and you got to stay with keep doing what you're doing regardless of the outcome of the game.
All right. So what tips could you? Go ahead.
Eric, before we move on, there is a related question to sort of the day as a photographer. I was curious, we had from the Q&A, how long does it take to process all those shots that you have to take in a given day?
So it will take, we start kind of like sorting the images that night after the game. That's why we're there still a little late. And then I would say by Wednesday, we have everything sorted. And then now we don't log everything. We'll pick out the best pictures. Like, say, for example, if our game highlights is, say, if it's 10 or 12,000 images and 6,000 of them may be mine. But anyway, we'll pick highlights out of that. So out of the highlights, we'll take about maybe 10% of those, and then we'll tag those and so on and so forth. And then once we finish by Wednesday, then we're prepping for the next game. Yeah.
Colin, do you want to ask that next question too?
Which one? Sorry.
Okay. Hey, so Terrell, how has your job changed due to COVID? Has that impacted you at all?
Yes, I would say, because for myself, I'm getting tested every day like the players, right? So, we got certain tier groups in the organization that we're with. They cut down the number of who's going to travel. If you look in the building here, there's certain areas that are restricted where you can't go. We still got to keep distance between us and the players, right? I am able to shoot practice. I can't get as close as I used to get, right? But I still have to shoot at a distance. So, it's a learning process. And also, if you're, watching, with what's happening now, it's like, they're going to be tightening up a little bit more. So because of exposure. So it changed. I mean, I'm only able to shoot on the field. There's only, I don't have as many people helping as before. Some photographers shooting in the stands. As you see, the field is kind of empty now. So it has changed this year dramatically.
All right. So what tips can you give the mom or dad who takes photos of their kids' sport, and what advice would you give them to improve their shots?
One thing when I'm teaching and speaking, and cameras and lenses have a lot to do with it as well. But then understanding, the concept of photography. And when I say understanding, it's like understanding, what the camera does, like your ISOs, shutter speed, apertures, how that related into creating, say, a properly exposed image, right? So, say for youth sports, it's like you want to at least shoot at a faster shutter speed, at least 500 or 1,000th of a second or 2,000th of a second to freeze the action. You can't freeze action at, say, a 15th of a second or 1/25th of a second. So, and understanding the cameras and what it do. So some of the cameras too that are out there for, like I say, the soccer mom, dads, little league, dads or moms shooting little league baseball, or it could be your daughter, dance, right? You want to be able to freeze that action and understanding the cameras. And some of the cameras are automatic now, where you could set it to these modes, and it'll give you the proper settings for that sport or dance or portrait, right? But with that though, you want to look at that data to say, okay, what aperture was I at? What shutter speed was I at? So, I grew up on manual cameras, knowing have to know shutter speeds and apertures and, film, compared to 100 speed film to 400 speed film or 800 speed film. So it's all correlated in that too. And then reading the manual and understanding that. And then, there's a lot of videos out there too that explains that. But I think just understanding the concept. Once you get that concept, then you'll be okay. And then understanding the sport of what you're shooting, what your child is playing. Like, you know, what is a key action shot? What is that moment? It could be, you know, scoring a goal or the celebration afterwards, right? Or the kid running around smiling with their hands up. I mean, it's not always have to be, you know, bad on ball, but then again, you know, it's a matter of that emotion of the game as well. Telling that story. So, you know, what we do is we tell the story.
Yeah, is there a certain way that you, or something you look for? You know, I all my kids were in sports, and
yes.
I can't imagine I even have one single good shot of any of them because I was always missing the shot, right? So is there, you know, if we're thinking about the parents that are out there that may not be pros, but are there things that you would look for or set yourself up for trying to get that great shot of your kid in a celebration or the perfect hit?
Well, you got to follow them. You got to follow the action. It's like you said, you got to take, like you asked me earlier, like, you know, how do I, you know, watch the game or shoot the game without getting tied up into the game? It's the same thing when your kid is playing. You're watching your kid, right? And so you don't realize that you're missing a shot, right? And once you can teach yourself to follow, you know, your kid or, you know, or if your friend's kid, and follow them as they're kicking the ball or running around, and then, you know, concentrate on what they're doing, and you know the sport, you know soccer, you know what, you know, where they're going to go. Not really where they're going to go, but you got to follow the action, right? And you know, take that emotion out of, you know, the mom and the dad, and then watch it. Once you watch it, and then you start capturing and clicking the shutter, then you'll see, say, oh, now I get it. But it also takes practice too, though, right? You know, you have to take, you know, the mom and dad out of it and say, okay, I got to capture this. And then because you said you don't want to miss anything, but you're going to replay it back over your head, and then you're going to say, oh, I could do both things at the same time. Take a picture and still enjoy the game as well.
Got it. Thanks. So we'd love it if you could share some of your favorite shots and help us dissect them.
Oh, okay. Well, I got a few here, and let me do share screen here. I don't know, where's my, oh, there we go. Let's see, hopefully everybody, oops. Let me go back again, I went too far. Hopefully everybody can see this. I mean, there's a couple things. If you see this image here, it's like, look at the lighting on this image here. So, like, remember I talked to you earlier about Candlestick. You said, what's the difference in, like, Candlestick and Levi Stadium is like, and I always look at light, right, the direction of light. We were playing in Chicago, and this was Jimmy Garoppolo's first game back in Chicago, right? And he came out for a pregame. This is a pregame picture. You would think, like, this is almost a game shot here, right? And I got so excited because look at the direction of light. That's, I mean, coming inside the helmet, you know, just clean and crisp. You know, if I would have shot this on the opposite side, and if he was facing the other way, I would never get this shot like that. So that's what I'm looking for at certain times during pregame. And this is like, you know, a nice, you know, 3/4 portrait of Jimmy here. Let me go to the next one. Shooting in a rain game. You know, we had a couple of rain games last year on the road back-to-back in Washington and Baltimore. You know, it's different shooting in a rain game than, say, you know, on a nice sunny overcast or sunny day or something like that. It's like you got to have the cameras covered. You know, I can't switch out lenses as much as I did, you know, do during a normal game. And I've got a couple of images to show you what I shoot with. But it's a matter of fact, look, if you look at this rain and it's muddy, everything's flying around. I mean, and you got to keep the camera dry. So it's like, but if you look at that picture, it just tells a story of like the day of the game, right? This one here, you know, we get a flyover. It's like, how am I going to shoot a flyover? I mean, I can shoot it with a regular lens, but I have a 8 to 15 millimeter fisheye that you could turn into a circular lens, right? So I just look straight up. Airplanes come over, wait for them to get right in the center. I'm rapidly firing here, like 14 frames, 16 frames a second, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, I get that right in the middle, and that's my shot right there, right? This one here, if a lot of photographers, I don't know if you ever heard of a tilt shift lens, right? And this one here, tilt shift, you could take, like if you're doing like corporate photography or taking images of buildings. If you take your regular lens and you try to take a picture of the building, it looks like the building is leaning backwards. But camera manufacturers have these tilt shift lenses where you shift the lens and the building becomes straight. Here, you'll use this like at a game, and it looks like the players are like miniature, right? As you see, there's blurred off in the background, foreground, and then they become tinier a little bit. So my focus point is right in the center of the field where the players are there. I use that every now and then just for, some wide stadium shots there. And then, the equipment I'm shoot with game day. I work with 5 cameras. As you count here, I got about 9 lenses. I got a flash. I got like wireless transmitters. The transmitter over here that I transmit wirelessly to a FTP server. All that I learned from my corporate days when technology had taken over for digital away from film. It's like, how do I get images out quickly? So people say, well, how do you carry, 5 cameras, 9 lenses? I got a waistband with all kind of stuff, and that's what I'm able to, like, what I want to say, produce different images for the organization, not just game action. But remember, I told you for partnerships, for sales, how am I going to do it? And you got to have different lenses to do that. If I would just have 2 cameras or 3 cameras, everything would look the same, right? And even if I was trying to capture a huddle shot, so how do I make it look different? And this is what I do. So, but then to carry all that gear, with a couple of those big lenses, I have 2 assistants that help me get up and down the field. So it's like, yeah.
Hey, Terrell, we have a question about specifically about what camera lenses do you use on the field. So I don't know if you can go back. Some of the specifics.
I can go back.
I'm sure there's some photographers out there that would love to know the specific type of gear you use.
Yeah. Oh, so right now, currently, Canon has come out with 1DX Mark IIIs. Like I said before, I've had every flagship camera that they've come out with. Now, the big thing is mirrorless. Canon has their new R5. I'm trying to incorporate that mirrorless into my workflow with the 1DX3s. If you look here, that's a 600 millimeter lens in the middle, 400 to the left, 300 over there that's standing up as well. I have a 70 to 200. So if you look at the range of lenses, where the 600, if they're further downfield, I start with the 600. As they start moving down the field, I go to the 400, right? And when they're inside the red zone, inside the 20 or 25, I'll be shooting with the 300 or the 70-200 that's standing without the camera on the lens itself. And then the smaller lenses, I have a fisheye, 8 to 15 millimeter fisheye. I have a 24 to 70. I have an 85 1.4 lens as well. And then for a super wide, I have like 11 to 24 millimeter lens. It was, talking about, the focal length of a lot of the lenses there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Let me minimize that. Let's get back to stop sharing. Okay, we're back.
So Terrell, just so you know, if you need any help out there on the field, there's a number of people that would like to assist in sharing your equipment.
Oh yeah, let me. It's like it's interesting. It's like. I get that all the time. And it's like, it's funny though, when people come out, it's like I'm constantly running, constantly moving, constantly going around the field, looking for those angles, looking where I'm going to go. And sometimes I could be kneeling down, and this could be during the timeout or before the next play, and then I'll see something else, and I say, no, I want to move positions over here, right? And so, I remember one time we were playing in New England, I found myself chasing plays. And what I meant by that is like, I moved to one side of the field, touchdown goes to the other side. I moved to the other side, touchdown goes back to, we must score about 40 points. Every time I move, touchdown went the opposite direction. But I kind of like angle myself to where I can get something, and I still had a good day, even though it wasn't directly in front of me.
I think we lost your video too, Terrell. I don't know if you're...
Oh, it must have clicked off.
There
we go.
Right.
Well, I thought that was like it. Yeah, there we go. I was saying,
they came here to see you, not me, so...
Oh, yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. It must happen when I clicked on the share screen, yeah.
So kind of on that note, what is your most memorable shot or the shot that you may have missed? You've had a long career. I don't know if you can boil it down to 1 or 2, but I'm sure we'd love to hear it.
It's funny. People always say, what's your best picture? What's your memorable shot? What's one, and I remember I was telling a story about, one that I missed that, kind of like, your dream is always to get, as a sports photographer, and as I was coming up, is like to get the winning shot in a Super Bowl, right? Imagine that, winning shot in a Super Bowl. And, the Niners had already gone to 5 Super Bowls, then we had some bad teams, and then all of a sudden we made a run in 2011 and missed the, lost the NFC Championship game to the New York Giants. Then the next year we made another run and, beat Atlanta in Atlanta to go to the Super Bowl, right? And so, we started late in that game, got behind, came back, and with 2 minutes and some odd seconds left, we're at 1st and goal at the 7-yard line, right? And my heart's pounding, and that's when you go through your mind, man, it'd be great to get the winning play in this Super Bowl to win this game. And I had 3 passes that we threw to Michael Crabtree in the end zone. And it came directly on my side of the field, right in front of me. And on 4th and goal at the 5, he missed that pass by 12 inches. And that would have been the winning catch of that Super Bowl. And so it's kind of like, and it's so hard getting there. And imagine like how, by having that image or capturing that shot, it's just a moment in time, right? So, I mean, I've taken hundreds of thousands or maybe over 1 million images and photos, but getting a winning catch is like just the ultimate dream, So yeah, that's one that I missed. I missed one with Terrell Lloyd one time early in Candlestick, and that was one where I was almost watching through the lens and not paying attention because I thought Steve Young had fell. He threw the ball, thought it was going out, and Terrell Owens caught it in the end zone, and I got a picture after he caught it kneeling, falling down, because I was watching the ball and it wasn't snapping at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to get that winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, and that's going to be my shot.
Well, hang in there. I maybe this year.
Yeah. All
right. So what advice do you have for people who desire to have a dream job like your own? That might be a tough question. I don't know.
Well, it's like, you got to follow what your passion is. I mean, it's like, I've had everything that I've done from, like I say early on that you guys saw with me becoming a professional bowler, because I've come full circle. So imagine this. When I was a little boy growing up in San Francisco, and I had a paper route, and I used to throw papers. I used to cut out pictures from the 49ers games from when they played at Kezar and make my own 49er books. I wish I would have kept it back then, not knowing what I'm going to be doing today, but I had a love for pictures, right? Not knowing I was going to be a photographer. But growing up as a kid, I knew when I became a good bowler as a youth that I wanted to be a professional bowler. And so I followed that dream. When I was going to school, I had a fascination about computers, and I was taking computer science classes in school early on. And I ended up working in an IT company, working in their data center, and then taking photography in school and loving pictures, and now I became a photographer. So I tell people, regardless of what you want to do, even if it's part-time, full-time, or trying to figure out how to get to that point, it's just a matter of having that passion and pursuing that passion and making it reality. And I'm a true testament that I've done that. So, and I mean, I don't care if it's something, if you're trying to be a chef or you want to cook or whatever it may be. I tell college students or high school students, it's going to be hard. Follow your dream. People are going to say you can't do this, or, that's crazy. You need to do this or do that. It's like, I feel like I haven't worked a day in my life to where a job I did not like, right? From bowling to working at Nortel Networks to doing photography and traveling the world and to do what I do with the 49ers. It's like, I work every day. I say follow your passion, dreams, whatever you want to do, and figure out how you're going to get there. And one key thing I tell a lot of people is networking. Network with the people that are doing some of the things that you want to do or pursue, and figure out how to get to that point, right? Like I say, I put it out there myself and said, man, it'd be great to get with the 49ers, right? And I just threw it out there. And look at where I'm at today, and in that story, if you guys couldn't hear the audio, or some of you, it's like, the PR director hung up the phone on me at the end of the season. But he would tell me every week in the middle of the season when I got a pass to give him a call, and I called him every week, right? And so, I called him like I knew him, and he's like, hey, this is Terrell. He said, sorry, don't have anything, hung up the phone. And imagine that. Now imagine how you feel like, well, now you made the person mad because you called too many times. So then I had to figure out what is the best way for me to get on the field. And then I got on with a small magazine. I had my regular job, but the magazine I got on with was a monthly magazine, and that's what got me credentials. That's what that's what got me in front of people. So you want to get in front of people that are doing some of the things that you aspire to do. Yeah.
That's great advice. Great advice.
And Eric, that's even for you if, like, you want to assist on the field one day. It's like, okay, Terrell, let me keep calling you. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Colin said he was going to give me your phone number, so that's great.
Yeah.
All right, Colin, I think we probably have some questions from the audience.
We do. We have quite a few, so I'll try to get through as many of these as we can.
Yeah.
One that's come up a few times is, and you'll have to think carefully about this, Terrell.
Okay. Here we go.
Who is your favorite 49ers player to photograph?
Favorite to photograph? Not just favorite player, but favorite to photograph, like right now?
Yeah.
Or in general? Because it could be a broad question, right?
However you want to answer it.
Okay, so let me answer it in two ways, right? One of my favorite players to photograph back in the day at Candlestick I would have to say, was Frank Gore, the running back. Frank Gore gave me such a great look coming off the line of scrimmage, with the way he ran. He ran so hard and so strong, and it's like with authority, his knees were up and just going, and he used to like break out like a 30-40 yard run right at me, right? And just the look of that was just fantastic, right? I would say if somebody was talking about like today and today's era with what I'm doing, 2020, 2019, it's like there's so many players that are doing exceptional, great on this team, and one of them, it's hard to always pick one, but I would have to say when we drafted Nick Bosa, right? I was so excited about that, and just getting him coming off the line and bull rushing the lineman and sacking the quarterback. I mean, that's been one of my favorite guys, until he got hurt this year. I'd say last year, because I was focused and key and got so many sacks last year on the defensive side. I would have to say Nick Bosa, currently on the team.
Right. This is a little bit of a tough question too. So how do you deal with differences between your artistic sensibilities and the customer's demands? Do you ever have customers who don't like your work, even though it's technically and artistically good?
Yeah, you got it. That's a hard one. When I was doing corporate or doing weddings or doing, any type of portraits, it's kind of like, photography is so just subjective, right? And it's hard to take when someone doesn't like it, right? To be honest, right? I did weddings for about 16 years, right? Mostly all my weddings are great. I think I've had 2 weddings that just didn't work out very well. And that was towards the end of when I was trying to transition out of weddings towards the end. And I had one client that she didn't like her photographs. And it was hard. It was hard to take because after 17 years doing weddings, it was like, wow, what do you mean you can't? But I knew, and some people, and to say this, they just didn't really photograph well. And I knew they were going to blame me on it, right? Now, I thought the pictures came out great, but it was tough. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole scenario, but it's hard to take. From a corporate side, it's kind of like you want to understand what the client wants, what their needs are. It's like you got to get that understanding from, like I say in my quote, what are their expectations first, right? You got to find that out. If you don't know their expectations, you can go in and do whatever you want, and they could say, well, that's not what I wanted. Well, you didn't tell me what you wanted. So you have to find out what their expectations are, what they're looking for, what they want to capture, how they want to capture it, what are the key things. And if you capture their key things, you should be okay. So yeah.
Great, thank you. I think I know the answer to this, but I don't want to assume. Did you ever have an opportunity to photograph Roger Craig? Or you were with the team at that time or not?
No, Roger was before me. He was already gone by the time I got on the field and everything like that. And it's funny, Joe was already gone. I got a picture of Joe from in the stands during that time, and then he left for Kansas City. And so, but it's interesting, Ronnie Lott was gone. Steve Young was still there. Jerry Rice was there. Garrison Hurst, I don't know if people remember him, but I had a chance to photograph Steve and Jerry and get some of those in my archives from early on in the early 90, I think 97, 96, 97, 98, 99 time frame. Yeah.
All right. We got some interested parties here, and these are sort of related, so I'll group these together. What do you look for as far as experience when hiring photographers for the 49ers? And also, do you take any volunteer photographers for game days? People would love to sign up.
You know, as far as I could say experience, it's like remember I was talking about the basics of photography. It's like, okay, if you know how to use a flash, no, we don't use flashes during the game, but it's like because we got to get people, like, you know, some of my photographers that I have they're shooting in the suites, getting sweet images and people on the sidelines. You know, you have to know how to operate a flash. You got to know, like I say, f-stop, shutter speed, ISOs, because that's key to balancing, you know, your exposures, right? And then I look for, you know, what your images look like, some of your sample images, right? It's like, okay, did they properly expose that? Did they use flash? Did you do this? Because some photographers today, they don't use flash. They don't know how to operate a flash or to make adjustments, and that is key as well. And so, and then it's personality. I look big for personality because you have to be able to relate and get along with people, right? And being pleasant with people. So it requires a big package, really, to, you know, that I look for in that aspect. And the second part, what's the second part of your question was? Do
you take volunteer photographers for game day? And if so, how do they sign up for that?
Well, you know, I'm always, I don't want to say I'm always looking, you know, which I'm always open to looking for photographers because how can I put this? It's like I say, it's more to than just shooting game day, right? It's a matter of, like, sometimes we got to shoot fans in a parking lot, tailgates, fans coming in, you know, like I say, sweet photos. I mean, it's like sometimes I have opportunities for those as well. Sometimes when you find good photographers, it's like, you know, I have a crew of photographers that's been with me for a long time that I don't really change out, right? But I always like to add a few new ones in, depending on what the need is. And then also we have, during the non-COVID time, hopefully we can get back to normal at some point, where, you know, we have events during the week sometimes where I'm always looking for photographers, right? So it's like you got to be willing to do the outside stuff as well, other than like game day as well. It's like, how do you learn? How do you get to that next level? It's like, you know, like myself, you know, none of the other photographers wanted to do the check presentations or the pre-game stuff or the frisbee dogs on you know, the candlestick field, right? And I was willing to do that, right? You know, and that's what got me to this level. So you got to be willing to almost do anything.
Great. Let's see here. I think you may have answered this, but what is a picture that you most regret not taking? Is there one?
Like not taking or just not getting? I mean, that was the Terrell Lloyd ones that I missed. But yet, you know, sometimes it's like I will lapse and daydream and, you know, miss a shot because like, oh man, you know. But it's like saying, is there any others that I regret that I've missed? I mean, not really. You know, it's like, but you got to be ready for those key moments. And I think as time went on, I learned how to be ready for those shots, right? Make sure, like say for the one I was telling you about in the Super Bowl with Michael Crabtree, right? It's like, you know, you got to make sure the camera settings on your camera is correct, that the dial, you didn't accidentally hit the dial and change something, right? Next thing you know, you take a picture and it's like, oh, it's out of focus or it's underexposed or it's once it's overexposed, it's done. But it's like the small things, just being ready, you know, for that moment. So it's like, yeah.
And then do you have any advice for handling the social aspect of photography? This is coming from, I guess, a beginner photographer who's hesitant to take pictures of people just because of, I guess, the awkwardness of taking photos of someone that maybe you don't know.
Well, I mean, the one thing is like, you know, say from a social standpoint or just taking pictures of just random people. I mean, that's a hard one, right? Because, you know, if you're out just taking images, I mean, it's like some people don't like having their picture taken if they don't know who you are or something like that. I mean, I would say I never take pictures of people that I don't know, right? Just to you know, either I'm going to get some of my friends or relatives or somebody that they may know to say, hey, how would you like to go out and do some portraits? You know, I want to practice, do that. I mean, I would do something like that, but I wouldn't do random people and so on and so forth. But it's funny, you know, if you talk about from a social standpoint, in posting as well, it's kind of like if people follow me on my Instagram or, Twitter or something like that, I don't post a lot of pictures all the time, right? I don't post pictures just to be, posting, game action photos, right? And maybe it's because since I teach and speak and sponsorship from Canon, it's kind of like I post pictures from an educational standpoint, right? Here's my thought process on how I shot that photo, what I shot that photo with, what lens, what aperture, what shutter speed, what ISO, so you can understand how it came out, right? Give you an example. I posted something a couple weeks ago from one of our games in New York, right? And I did the tale of two photos, right? And all of a sudden it attracted everybody's mind, right? It's like, what does he mean? I showed a picture that I missed, but then I also showed a picture that I did get, right? And people are like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I decided to, because there was only one photographer on the field, so I decided to stay down to get a shot of Jimmy Garoppolo dropping back to pass, right? To get that, because we use that for sending those out sometimes real quick, right? Well, I said, let me do that early and then get down the field for when we're driving down the field. Well, he hands the ball off to our running back, and he runs 80 yards for a touchdown. So I missed it in the end zone, or else I would have got that touchdown coming at me if I would have been in the end zone. But I got a nice shot at him running with the ball as he passes me, right, as I'm kneeling down, and I'm looking on the screen. There he goes for a touchdown. So I got a great shot, but I missed the touchdown. But then the flip side, here's the story of the picture that I did get that came right in front of me. Our tight end, Jordan Reed, caught a pass, jumped up, turned, came right towards me, right at me in the end zone, and I got that shot for a touchdown, and it was right in front of me. So it was like the tale of two photos. One I missed, but one I also got too as well. So there's a meaning for when I do post and what I do and have a meaning. So it's kind of like if people are going to post images or they're going to take portraits or do something for social, just don't do it. You could do stuff landscape, but just not of people that you don't know, because now it's like people get awkward. It's like, who's that person taking a picture of? So things like that.
Yeah, so related to that, so that shot of tight end catching the touchdown, has any player ever collided with you?
It's like I get that asked a lot. I've come close a couple of times, right? Knock on wood that hasn't happened. I will get out of the way in a minute of a play coming towards me, right? I will not sit there just to get that shot up tight, because for one, I'm only 170 pounds myself, and these guys are 250, 230 with pads on, and they're going very fast, right? But there's times where I've had kneeling in the end zone, and a player, I stepped over to the side a little bit on my knee, and he went flying right by me, right? If I would stay where I was at, he would have taken me out, right? There was one when Dak Prescott for the Cowboys, I was shooting real low. They were pressed back against our end zone. The defense came in. He ran back. They hit him, and I was still taking the photo, and I really froze, and literally he landed right in front of me, or else he would have hit me. But it's kind of like, that one I did free. But I said, oh, he's not going to go that far. But I've come close a couple times. But I don't want to be jinxed, though, so that's the thing.
And then timing is a significant part of getting the shot. How much time do you spend in post-production before you say this is the shot?
So post-production, I'm real key on post-production. My thing was, back in the day, was getting it right in camera first. Because I've always said, if it's garbage in, it's garbage out, right? If you don't properly expose an image in camera and you have to work on it afterwards, it's like then you're not doing the job right? The object is to get the image properly exposed. You can do less work on the back end. Now, don't get me wrong, lighting is changing as the day goes on. So you have to make adjustments to your camera as time goes on. That's where I said, understanding your f-stops and shutter speed ISO by making adjustments to getting the proper exposure. Regardless if you're shooting a manual, aperture priority, some of the cameras have what I call auto ISO, where I give you an example on this one real quick. On auto ISO, our field during day games at this time of the year, it's split between half sun and half shade, right? So the thing is, you cannot shoot from the shady side into the sunny side, which we call backlit, right? Because now you can't properly expose for the shade because the sun is backlit, and then the exposures go all over the place, right? So my philosophy is, it's like, unless you're just gonna shoot anything that comes in the shade side, but if you're shooting in the sunny side, you can see it, it's just gonna mess you up. So I shoot from the sunny side, right, into the shaded area. Now, follow me here. So if I'm on, I'll set my shutter speed at like say 2,000 of a second, and I'll shoot at like 3.5 on the aperture, right, for photography buffs that know, apertures and shutter speed. Then I'll put my camera on what I call auto ISO. So now what happens is at 2,000 a second at 3.5 on auto ISO, if I'm in the sun, it may give me an ISO of 100 or 160, right? It's going to be properly exposed. As they move and transition into the shady side, I'm still at 2,000 of a second at f3.5. Now my ISO may go up to like, say, 1250 ISO to give me a proper exposure for the shady side. But I have a faster shutter speed, good aperture, and everything is properly exposed. You can't do that the opposite side, right? So those are some of the things that, that I do to get it right.
Awesome.
Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, for, people that understand photography and stuff like that. But you got to have a thought process going in of how you're going to shoot, what angle, where the light is. Is it half sun, half shade? Is it, if it's overcast, oh, great day. You can shoot, as it gets darker, you raise your ISO up a little bit, so on and so forth. If it's sunny, you can go, I shoot what we call aperture priority. I may go manual. It's a lot of things that you just have to learn over time to get it done. Yeah.
Great. We have about 1 minute left, so I know you and Eric sort of discussed this before the call, but I figure we can end with this for the call. Is Candlestick and Levi Stadium. How's the experience between the two? What do you like one better than? I don't know if you don't have to say if you like one better than the other, but if you want to share a little bit about your experience in the two different stadiums.
I love them both. I mean, I miss Candlestick. I miss the lighting in Candlestick. As you can tell, I talk about lighting a lot. Lighting is key. You saw that in the image. I just said that just now. The light at Candlestick, I could shoot from north to south, and it was great. You shoot from south to north, it was excellent. You had to adjust for that. Just beautiful light all times of the day, so on and so forth. Now we moved, 25, 30 miles south, into another building that has a tower. The sunset's a little bit different 30 miles south than when I was in San Francisco compared to Mountainside. So lighting looks a little bit different, but you learn how to adapt and to shoot. I mean, I love the building because it was a high-tech building. We shoot wirelessly on the field. Like I say, the FTP servers, we were getting stuff out like in real time. That's one thing I love about them both. And when you got a state-of-the-art, you have to evolve, right? It's like if you look at, where we were at 10, 15 years ago, even in social media or web or photography or what we do in our jobs, it's like you got to evolve over time, and that's what I did. You miss the old stadium, but it was like it was time for it to go. You missed the light, but you adapt to the new one. So I love them both, really, to be honest.
That's great. Well, thank you all for being on this call. Terrell, I want to personally thank you. It's great to see you again, and appreciate you taking the time. Eric, thank you for being a great host. This meeting was recorded, so if there is anyone that you want to share this with, we will be able to have a link for you to view this. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be having a drawing for a few Joe Staley bobbleheads. So if you are a lucky winner, I will be contacting you and letting you know.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for having me. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Got a little insight on what I do and my story, and I'm very, passionate. It doesn't get old to me for what I do, and I love talking about, and I love teaching. I love, help sharing people or even answering questions and this and that. And if people want to follow me on Instagram, it's they look at my name, Terrell Lloyd, or 49ers official photog, and you'll see some of the images and how I post and stuff like that. And it's like, oh wow, it's interesting on what he does. But yeah. But hopefully, I really appreciate it for having me on. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon, everyone.